it's Allie Edwards and welcome to another Project Life video. In this one today, I'm going to be talking about how I put together my Project Life spread or my Project Life story for May 2019. As most of you guys know, this year I've been doing it on a monthly basis, and if you look down here you can see straight off that I am doing 3x3 photos this time, and I'm actually just going to do one spread of them. What I saw when I went and looked back through my photos, which if you guys remember, that's how I'm tackling these stories each month, is by at the end of the month going back in and looking and seeing what stories stood out to me, what were the things that I found the most meaningful. And this time what I really saw was I wanted to just include some of the everyday life shots I took. Last month, or in May, was when I did Week in the Life, so I'm actually not including any photos that I took during Week in the Life in my spread for May. These are all extra random ones that happened either before or after that week. And I love the idea of excuse me, just bringing all of those photos together into one spread. And so I printed out, I think there's 23 of them, and I've got one of the cards from the May Stories by the Month kit, a wood veneer piece from that too as well that I'm planning to add there. I'm going to do something on top of all of these photos. I don't know what just yet. I've thought about adding numbers, right, that would be like to signify what day it is. I've thought about adding just a day stamp on there. I've thought about adding the This is May, which was a stamp that was included excuse me, with the May Stories by the Month. I thought about including that on each one of the photos, and I may still do that. Like, it's kind of a fun way to say, this is May, this is May, this is also May. I also have some other things that I want to include this time. These things that from the course of the month. So we went to a playoff basketball game. Simon had his Honor Society induction, and then it was Mother's Day. Mother's Day actually fell during Week in the Life, so again, I'm not adding any pictures, but this was just what Anna had made. So I'm going to insert a 8.5 by 11 page protector in here, and that'll just go on the inside, and that'll be my insert. So I think it's a nice reminder that in past months I've looked for like 3 main stories to focus on. This time I'm choosing to just go with the photos and add a little bit on top of each one of those photos, and I'll show you my process along the way. One of the things that I'm a big fan of in memory keeping is remembering that there can be a balance between long and short stories. So in most of my months this year, I have done longer stories. And this time I decided to just do shorter ones and focus on the images and then adding a little bit of additional word art based things for context. And so I think that's a nice reminder that it doesn't always have to be long, and sometimes it's just, what do we have enough time for? And the idea that doing something is better than doing nothing. And I love this glimpse. Like, I love this idea of kind of a glimpse of just some of the different random things that happened over the course of this month. So as you can see, what I'm doing right here is I am adding embellishments onto my photos, and I'm using a combination of things. I'm using chipboard from the May Stories by the Month kit. I am using label stickers. I have a good stash of them here, and I'll link those for you below as well. I love adding those directly onto my photos, into Project Life, and lots of different places. They're one of my most universally used things. And I'm adding them in throughout the spread. So I'm kind of spreading out where I'm adding chipboards, spreading out where I'm adding these label stickers, and I'm also adding basically a little bit more than half of them onto the bottom of some of these images. And then I'm going to go in a little bit and add on some words, so writing directly on them. So for me, the formula for this one is essentially label stickers. That's one choice that I gave myself. Chipboard, that was another choice that I gave myself. And then I also used the This is May stamp with Stays on ink and put that on a few of the photos. So those are the 3 main kind of design things that I gave myself. That's the menu that I gave myself to choose from. You'll also see that I added on some circle stickers that are part of the label stickers as well. And I also am going to be adding rolling date stamp onto these days or onto the photos where I stamped This is May. Now, a couple things to think about here. Again, it's not telling longer stories, and I think that that's okay. You can also see right there where I put one chipboard piece on and then I decided to pull it off, and I had to try to peel off some of the chipboard, which was totally fine, and that worked out just fine as well too. So finding places to add these on, sometimes with the chipboard or circle embellishments like that, I like to cut them a little bit so that they look like they are going off the top. Again, it's what I call interaction with the edges, and it's something that I do pretty regularly in my projects, whether they are in pockets or outside of pockets as well. So here I took this is a Staedtler Lumo Color permanent pen, and I'm adding just a little bit of context. Like I added Simon's Star Wars Party, and that one says Blazers Playoffs, and this is NHS Ceremony. So just a little tiny bit of like, where were we and what were we doing at each one of these things. Hanging stuff. That was a picture of some new prints that we hung up. Well, not new prints, but getting them hung up, prints in the house, end of year projects for that picture of Simon right there. So simple, again, selecting a simple design formula, having a couple things that you're choosing from, and then spreading those out around the spread here is a great way to approach embellishing. Again, it doesn't have to be layers of stuff. It can still be photo-centric and have a few different embellishments on there. One of the things I like to do when I'm adding these label stickers, whether they're the circles or the other ones, is add a staple. For some reason, I feel like that visually just kind of locks it down onto the photo itself. So you'll see me use my tiny attacher to do that in a bunch of different places here. And those smaller circle stickers are just another opportunity to add a few more words to give a little bit more context to the actual images there. Let's see, what else can I tell you about these? So the label stickers, like I said, we do have some of those in the shop. The others of them have been offered at different points in time in different colors, and they're just one of my favorites, so I always kind of have a stash of them available to myself there as well. Now you can see where I went back in and just kind of stapled each one of those down on there. That's a total personal preference. It's not something you have to do. I just like the look of it as well. So I think I'm wrapping that piece of it up. Then I pulled out my date stamp, and this is where I decided to date stamp onto the photos where I had already stamped "This is May." I made a mistake on that first one and did 2018 instead of 2019. So I went back over to my computer and reprinted. Once I had that reprinted, I did the process again, stamping "This is May" with stays on, and then adding the correct date onto that one. And what I do to establish the date is I go over to my computer and I look basically in the metadata, which is an information section related to your picture, so you can see when pictures were actually taken. And just going ahead and creating a little bit of space on there. When I'm doing this kind of stamping, well, actually, when I'm doing any kind of stamping, I'm totally not looking for perfection. I just am, if it gets on there mostly completely, I'm generally happy. And it's a good reminder to myself that I'm doing something that's, that's handmade, that doesn't have to be perfect, and that it can be, if I wanted to be perfect, I would use the computer. And I would put a font on top of the photo or that sort of thing. With the stamping, I inherently know that it's highly likely that something will not stamp perfectly, especially when I'm doing it on photos. So I'm totally fine with imperfections that go along there. Now I'm just going through the process of adding these all into the pockets. Sometimes when I do this, this is where I will need to trim some of them down. If they go in and I feel like they're too tight, then I often just take them over to my paper trimmer there and trim it down just a little bit along the edge so that it doesn't feel like it is way too tight in the pocket. But that is essentially it for what I wanted to do for May. Again, simple is just fine. Simple does not mean less than. That's a big thing that I believe in for sure. One thing I did need to do with the 8.5 by 11 page protector was I needed to punch a couple more holes. So I used the power punch to get those in there. And then you can see I just have the 8.5 by 11 page protector on there with those other couple things stuck inside. And then I added an Avery index tab along the outside edge. All right, that's a wrap for May 2019. A look at my project life spread. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to answer them below. Got lots of other project life process videos here on my YouTube channel or on my blog.